One thing that I like about when you come to Mrs. Rios's house, and that's what I have my children call me, either Mrs. Rios or Miss Cheril. I wanted to make it as a place of warmth and comfort. And I learned very early on that it wasn't just about teaching piano. It was about making that each student feel very special so that when they walk out that door, that they feel loved and that they feel that they've been heard and they feel that they've been heard. For me, piano is more than just teaching music. It's also about the whole person. Music has always been central to my life. I am a Minnesota farmer's daughter, and in my life growing up, church was central to what we did. It was our social, it was our worship, it was just part of our family, and music was a big part of that. I started playing piano when I was about 4 years old. I took from Mrs. Dahl, and she taught all the kids in our small little community in central Minnesota. After that, when I was in 4th grade, I decided I wanted to play the violin. So I also play the violin, and I still play that today at orchestra in my current church. Then when I got into high school, and in small town Minnesota, high school started in 7th grade. I played the trombone, and I played the trombone in marching band. But through it all, piano was my love. And so I really pushed myself, and just even doing that, I learned so much more in the piano and a lot about myself. As time went by, my mom, she always loved music, and she would take me to my lessons and things like that. She wanted me to go to a small Lutheran school, which was in Moorhead, Minnesota. It was called Concordia. And she wanted me to major in music and be a music teacher. And I'm like, no. I don't want to do that. I want to be a businesswoman. I love travel, and I was very fortunate in my family because we did travel a lot when I was a child. And that I wanted to travel, live in different places, have this exciting life. I did not want to be a music teacher. Lesson learned that maybe everybody should listen to your mother. I should have listened to my mom, because I would have been a different teacher than I am today. But it all worked out. And so a couple of the things that really changed my life was my mom being sick and dying when I was in college. It was very devastating for me. The way I coped with it, I drank a lot. My friends and we partied a lot. I'm very fortunate that I didn't die. I didn't get raped, or I didn't get maimed. I really believe that God was watching out for me, and so was my mom. Also during college at that time, I started flying. I just wanted to do that. So I got my private pilot's license, and so it was kind of a way for me to be a little bit closer to my mom. But that summer was when I met my husband. I played softball in college, and we were in Minot, North Dakota for a softball tournament, and he was in the Air Force. And my friend said, hey, we like going here because the flyboys will come and ask you to dance. And sure enough, they did. And pretty soon, Eric and I just talking, it was just the two of us. We were talking about flying, and even at that time, I had more flying hours than my husband, who was flying a B-52 in the Air Force, had. And so we really connected. And then we probably drank a little too much that night. He dropped me off in the morning. When I saw him again, he came to visit me in Fargo, which is about 300 miles from Minot. And I opened the door, and he looks up at me, and I look down at him, because we were both like, oh, because I'm 4 inches taller than him. We got married. Again, for me, there really wasn't much as far as career-wise. I opened up my own aerobic studio. It was called the Aerobic Club. I had about 10 instructors that helped teach classes. And in that time, I had my first son. Once we moved to Dallas, I was going to go get a job. But then I started looking at daycares, and it was like, I don't really want to put my child into a daycare with people who I don't know. We didn't have any family here. We knew nobody here. For me, it was really hard because at that point, I wanted to be more than someone else's mother or someone else's wife. And I also wanted to contribute financially to the family. And that was really in me. And that was one of the hardest things because I felt my identity was tied to somebody else versus being my own. One of my neighbors knew that I played piano and that I had taught briefly off and on during college and things, very briefly. She goes, "Well, you teach my children?" And I said, "Sure." And pretty soon that grew. And then it grew and grew and grew. So my little music studio started off with 3 students. And at my peak, I had 65 students. I always thought as my children got older, I would go back to corporate world job or working for somebody else. But it's, just to be that big person, to make a big difference, a big impact in life, or make more money or whatever. But my life was changing and I was changing. Things that I thought were so important, they just really weren't anymore. I mean, I have these 3 amazing kids and I was able to spend all the time with them. And so looking back at my teaching piano, I don't just think of my 3 children as my children. I think of all of my piano students as my children, and I treated them as such. Going back and looking, I have taught over 1,000 students, which, in this big scope of life, I always think that being a piano teacher, a harp teacher is a small thing in life. It's important, but it's small. And then I started really realizing, maybe it's not so small. Maybe I'm having an impact on these children's lives. And these children, a lot of them have grown up and become absolutely amazing adults. And I always like to think that I'd like to take a little bit of credit for that. So the question for me was, what is my life philosophy? And as a 61-year-old woman, I've been asking myself that a lot. What is this all about? What is it? So when I say my last, now I lay me down to sleep, what's the most important thing? Is if people remember me and they think and they say, she was very kind. You know what? Then I've succeeded. I feel good about that. And that's what I want to be known for.